Welcome to Financial Issues, where we join reality with truth, helping you make the most of your money by honoring God with your investments. Now listen in as we give you the practical tools and advice you need to become a biblically responsible investor.
Good morning, folks. Welcome to Financial Issues. It is great to be here with you today. I'm Seth here with our Studio A team. Down one man, of course. Sam is on vacation this week, but we've got Elijah Kelly on the audio board there with us as well. Grand Ace in there. Hi, Elijah. Ready for some fun,
Seth.
man?
Hi, everybody.
Have some fun. This is just like the old days, man. It's going to be good.
So long ago.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just like the good times.
Grateful for those brothers in there, and for each of you as well. Thanks for joining us today. If you're watching, listening, you're on social media, welcome to you. Hey, we've got a good show today, folks. My friend Bob Barber is going to join me later in the show. We're going to analyze the biblical worldview of retirement as we seek to ask and answer this question: is retirement biblical? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the chat if you have an opinion on that. Is retirement biblical? Also, there might very well be a long-awaited audit of the Federal Reserve. I'm a fan of that, courtesy of Trump's Treasury Secretary. We'll see what comes of that. We'll take a look at that headline in just a moment, as well as your partner questions and comments. Get those in there to the chat as quickly as you can, wherever you're watching. And what do we make of cryptocurrency? There's been a lot of talk about cryptocurrency. Donald Trump has really positioned himself as a crypto-positive president. We've seen Bitcoin hit all-time highs recently. I think it's retreated back from those in the last couple days, but it's still pretty darn high. So there's a lot to talk about there. We'll keep an eye on all of that. Grateful for each of you today, of course. Also, be on the lookout for this week's partner commentary, the buy broad list updates in the next 24 hours. Make sure that you digest what Shanna has to say there. It's always good stuff. But as it is now, folks, let's take a look here at the markets to start off our show. So had a relatively strong week last week. The markets really got it going on Monday. They started out the gate hot. The NASDAQ and S&P were vying for new records, really thanks to some big tech gains. That was driving it yesterday. All three indices were positive, and they were pushing towards a full % gain by midday. Afternoon, they kind of plateaued, and then by late afternoon, they actually fell back slightly on their attack. The Dow Jones was descending near the flat line by closing time. And that's basically where it ended, actually. The Dow Jones was the lone loser yesterday, but it was basically at the flat line. The S&P 500 hit a new record, not too high. It was up about 0.1%, but did hit that new record, as well as the NASDAQ also hit a new record. That one was the winner of the day, right around 0.2 of a percentage point as we closed yesterday. This morning, the market's still kind of mixed. They're hanging right around the flat line right now as they're waiting for the opening bell this morning on Wall Street. But let's move now, folks, to what I mentioned just a moment ago. Pretty good headline. I'm excited for this. I'd love to hear your thoughts on it. Scott Bessent is apparently calling for a full review of the Federal Reserve. So on Monday, the Treasury Secretary sat down with CNBC and suggested in an interview that there needs to be a full review of the Fed, not merely over the controversy of lavish building updates, but an institutional investigation of sorts all the way down to each different level. If you remember recently, the Federal Reserve was in hot water because of a lavish proposed spending project, I should say, that included such things like marble walkways and a rooftop dining and different things that compared it, comparatively at least, to the Palace of Versailles. Pretty fascinating there. Bessent said this, quote, "What we need to do is examine the entire Federal Reserve institution and whether they have been successful. Has the organization succeeded in its mission?" He continued, "If this were, say, the Federal Aviation Administration and we were having this many mistakes, we would go back and look at why this has happened." He's exactly right. So the latest headlines in the Oval Office versus the central bank is really fraught with controversy here, folks. It's kind of fascinating. Keep in mind, this comes as, of course, rumors have swirled about Bessent being the lead candidate to replace current chair Jerome Powell. This just pours gasoline on the fire, as he's the one who's saying all this stuff. And keep in mind as well, Powell's time is short left at the Fed. I believe it's less than a year if he finishes out his term. I believe it's May of 2026 is when he'll officially be finished. He's slated to finish then. But there's conflicting reports about the Trump team looking to oust him early. And of course, if they did oust him early, there's an outside chance, maybe not so much of an outside chance, that Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent would be the replacement for him. Real interesting stuff here, folks. I got to say right off the bat, there's something delightful about this. The interpolitical fightings going back and forth. It seems like a lot of it is theater and smoke and mirrors, but it really is fun to watch, at least from an outside perspective. That said, Bessent's exactly right. He's 100% right. He's not the only one also who has been calling for accountability for the Federal Reserve. It's fascinating to me that certain governmental institutions, and I know many of you are going to hear that and you're going to say, well, the Fed's not a governmental institution, it's a private institution. But let's be real here. There are a lot of things about the Fed that are governmental. It was actually started by our government, and it has serious control over different facets of our country, including the monetary policy. You know, it's as good as any time, folks, to remind you what in the world the Fed is and why it exists in the first place. It was actually born because of a bank run. Bank runs, not uncommon to the American imagination. And just remember, the definition is when banking clients, due to widespread panic or fear, and oftentimes that's maybe added in with a touch of greed here and there, they would run the bank. They would run to the bank. They would withdraw their money so as not to lose it. In American history, there's been several of these, both very long ago and frankly very recently. Bank runs would usually have a causal sequence. So if one bank had a bank run, it would trigger another bank run, and this would happen. Usually it would lead to others. The most memorable, or at least one of the most memorable, actually perhaps not the most memorable, because there was, of course, the stock market crash of 1929, but maybe the next most memorable in American history was the Panic of 1907. The Panic of 1907 really was the last straw that caused Wall Street to dip about 50%. And in the eyes of the federal government, they said, you know what, it's time to act. We got to do something about this. So in 1913, with the backing of the Congressional Federal Reserve Act, and that's why I can confidently say there's a lot about the Federal Reserve that is governmental, the Central Bank of the United States was born. And ever since then, we've had a Federal Reserve. Here's the deal. I've said this before. Ideally, no Fed would be great. I would love that. I think that would be wonderful. I think the Fed leads from behind a lot. I think they don't really know what they're doing. I think a lot of times they cause more trouble than they cause good things to happen. That said, we're, in a sense, you could argue we're almost too deep into it at this point. And the question has to be asked, what would replace it? What would replace it? It might be the least evil of the evil options. It honestly might be. I'm not so sure I'd like Congress in charge of the nation's monetary policy. Maybe it'd be better. Maybe it would depend on the different political leanings of said Congress. But still, I mean, let's face it, Democrat or Republican, they don't really know how to manage money very well. And so I'm not really sure I would like that either. So it doesn't really matter which party dominates both chambers. Maybe the best option moving forward is what the Treasury Secretary has suggested. Maybe we need to go with what we got, but we need a serious overhaul. I agree with him 100%. I think a serious investigation into the Fed is necessary. Accountability is necessary as well. And for that reason, I'm grateful that this alleged lavish spending proposal came out, because maybe this is the catalyst for true accountability in the Federal Reserve. We'll just have to wait and see there, folks. Very interesting stuff, nonetheless, as the Trump-Powell saga continues. Elsewhere, the big, beautiful bill is including a Trump account investing opportunity for newborns. We've touched on this before, but I wanted to mention it yesterday because it was also today because it was dominating yesterday's news headlines. Just keep in mind, folks, this Trump account is designed to help young folks start investing early. It's a government investment account with what I've seen, $1,000 for children born between 2025 and 2028. The exact dates right now are unclear to me. I've seen some reports saying it's early 2025, and so we're right now, as we're recording this live today in July of 2025, we'd be living in that. I've seen some other reports saying that it's not going to be for another few months. Regardless of that, folks, I'm very excited to hear what Shanna and Jason are going to say about this, because I have a sneaking suspicion that they might be talking about this later next week. God willing, we'll get to that. You'll have to hear that, especially, I'll say this, if you have children born between 2025 and 2028, again, those specific dates notwithstanding, You're going to want to listen to this. If you have grandchildren, you're going to want to listen to this and maybe share that segment with your children as well. Again, that's going to be this coming Monday where Shanna and Jason will talk about this. I'm excited to hear about it because on face level, I think, oh, this is great. I have a son that was born in March this year. I'd like to get him set up with one of these. But maybe there's more to this than meets the eye. I'm not sure. Maybe there are things about this that I need to be aware of. And so if you're in my camp as well and you have a child who was born, or maybe you expect one to be born within the next 3 years, you're going to want to tune in Monday for that for sure. Well, folks, coming up on the other side of this break, we'll get to some of your partner questions as well. Quickly here, let's see what else is happening in the markets as oil is trending right around $66.50 a barrel in the pre-markets. The U.S. 10-year Treasury yield at right about 4.36% in the pre-markets this morning. So once again, the market's slated to open in about 15 minutes, and we'll see what they do. The major indices all hanging right around the flat line there. It's great to be here with you, folks. I hope you'll get your questions queued up and say hello as well. And keep in mind, we've got Bob Barber, who's going to join me later on in the show to talk about the biblical worldview of retirement. All that and more when we come back from Financial Issues.
There are moments in life that define us. Choices determine the courses we take. Choices that create life, or those that save a life. And some make life worthwhile. There are decisions to stay or to go, to remain the same or to grow. Sometimes we pray and make peace. Other times we take a stand for what we believe. In celebration, mourning, triumph, and defeat, we are invested in every decision we seek. Despite differences, we have one thing in common: the desire to do all for the glory of God. Keep your wallet aligned with your heart and your investments in harmony with your faith. Timothy Plan, biblically responsible mutual funds, ETFs, and retirement plans. Before investing, carefully consider a fund's investment objective, risks, charges, and expenses contained in the prospectus available at timothyplan.com. Read carefully before investing.
At Financial Issues, we understand the profound impact your support has in driving our mission forward. Through your donations, we're able to expand our reach on more radio and more TV stations, spreading the word about biblically responsible investing. Now, your money also supports us as we do the critical analytical work needed to identify high-quality, biblically responsible companies. So donate today at financialissues.org/donate. Again, that's financialissues.org/donate.
Preborn is making motherhood possible for thousands of moms across America.
I found out that I was pregnant. My family, they were like, no, you're not having this baby. I met Miss Linda. She offered to get me an ultrasound. That's where I very first heard the heartbeat. It was really a great thing that I was led to the choice to keep him.
To find out how you can support the life-saving mission of Preborn, go to preborn.com/FISM.
Securities offered through G.A. Reppel & Company, a registered broker-dealer and investment advisor, member FINRA and SIPC. Opinions expressed by Shanna are hers alone and are for informational purposes only, and do not necessarily represent those of G.A. Reppel or the outlet on which you are listening. You should consider how the information applies to your situation prior to personally implementing it, and consult any financial professional you work with to make sure it's applicable to your financial plan.
Got a little bit of breaking news out this morning, folks. It looks like Scott Bessent, speaking of which we were just talking about in that last segment, he's now saying that the China tariff deadline is likely to be extended. This is according to CNBC. U.S. likely to hash out an extension of Trump's incoming trade deadline with China. He's going to meet with Chinese counterparts in Stockholm, Sweden next week. So we'll see how the markets respond to that, folks. I'm sure they will respond one way or the other. The U.S.-China relationship, understandably, is a big one, but certainly has also been a market mover in that sense, for better or worse. That is for sure. We'll do a quick chat rundown here, folks. Good to see so many of you. I see George, Nelson, Eddie, good to see you, Eddie. John, Elijah's there. Jason's there. Lisa saying, Sir Sirth, you need to, she calls me Sir Sirth, which is fun. Guess you need to have another baby. I guess so, Lisa. I need to have how many babies could I have in these next 3 years? Like 3 or 4? Depending on if you have twins, though, or triplets. I mean, you could just have a lot of babies. So, yeah, no, that's good, Lisa. Thank you for that. Brian from Virginia, it's good to see you. Let's see, Nelson.
Hey, Brian.
Yep, great to see you guys. Claude, good to see you there, brother. Claude was asking a question. I think you had mentioned if Shanna had mentioned yesterday that Powell will raise interest rates. Claude, I'll have to go back and listen to the segment that we did yesterday, but I think if I'm correct, the understanding right now is that it's likely that the Fed probably won't raise rates. The question is whether they will cut rates this year. The last number that I heard was perhaps twice, but we'll just have to see how that goes. Trying to predict what the Fed's going to do is like trying to predict, I don't know, something that's unpredictable because you just don't know. I don't think they know what they're doing either. So that's kind of how that goes there. Let's see elsewhere. John, I see you there. Good morning to you. James in South Carolina. Bob, close to us in Virginia or in New Jersey. Excuse me. Good to see you. Apologize if I missed anyone there, but great to have you all on the chat. Hey, Elijah, let's get to a couple of these questions here. Let's start with Gary. What does he got?
Yeah, so I got Gary's question here, and he says, have you or someone on your team blogged about crypto and whether it is a moral investment opportunity? What do you think, Seth?
Gary, good question. Appreciate it. We haven't blogged about it so much, but we have spoken about it pretty frequently on the show. If you're interested, Gary, or any of you are interested in generally what we've said previously about cryptocurrency, here's what you got to do. Go to the show highlights page on the website, and please pay attention to this, folks, because this is a new feature with our new website. Go to the show highlights page on the website, type in cryptocurrency in the search bar, or you can type in crypto or Bitcoin, or my guess is if you type in cryptocurrency, you might get a larger swath of information than you would if you typed in Bitcoin or another specific type of cryptocurrency. But you can type in whatever you want and search for it there, and you'll be able to find it there, Gary. Hopefully that can be helpful for you.
Yeah, you're right. I just searched it, and I got a couple of clips here.
That's great. And Elijah, can you confirm? I should know this. I apologize that I don't off the top of my head. That is for anyone. That's not just for partners.
That is for anybody.
Okay,
you don't have to be a partner to access
even
that.
if you're not a partner, you can feel free to look up some of those videos that we've talked about there on our website. Of course, partners can do that as well. And there are many more videos available to just partners only on the partner side under the instructional videos page. But anyway, I digress. Gary, that's where I would tell you to go there. As for your question, whether it's a moral investment opportunity, I don't see anything about cryptocurrency objectively that is immoral in and of itself. It would be considered a neutral phenomenon, much like the dollar or gold. They can be used for good or bad things. That's how I would see it personally. I think a better way to look at cryptocurrency than is it moral versus immoral, or say is it sinful versus virtuous, is to say is it wise or is it unwise? I think that's a much better way to look at it. Cryptocurrency, here's the deal. It's very speculative. It tends to be volatile. There's little in terms of regulations. It's still somewhat kind of the Wild West of investing. It's becoming more and more mainstream, but it's not quite there yet. The Trump administration, I think, is doing a lot of things to make it more so. But I think it's even more true when it comes to the cheap kind of meme coin versions. Sam and I are always joking about these silly Bitcoins that we see that are worth they're like 20 cents a share, which, by the way, we would not promote that you buy those at all because they're incredibly speculative and probably not good long-term investment opportunities. But even the big ones like Bitcoin, I was just mentioning it was trending near all-time highs, but it's so volatile. And so the question that you have to ask is this: should a long-term investor invest in crypto if you're aiming to grow a robust portfolio over decades? It seems to me like a much better fit for a long-term investor is a good, solid, well-diversified strategy where you've got equities and maybe you have some mutual funds here and there, but you're spread out over all sorts of different sectors. That seems to me to be the way to go. By the way, that's the strategy that we offer here at the ministry. And I do believe, I'll stake my claim on this one, that long-term investing is the best form of investing. Long-term investing is the one that works the best, that tends to work the best. I'm not saying it's a guarantee that you'll make money doing it, but that's the proven, tried and true best way to do it. It really is. I'm also not saying that you can't make money doing short-term investing, mid-term investing. People do that stuff. Our founder, Dan Celia, talked about all that stuff. He knew a guy who made his living doing day trading. But generally speaking, especially for regular Joes like us, it's far better to stick with a good long-term solid strategy. By the way, that's the way that the Bible describes it. It says a man builds his wealth slowly, little by little. And so we're just investing the way the Bible lays out for us. So Gary, I think to bring it full circle, the best question for you to ask is whether cryptocurrency is a wise investment choice for you. We believe that the wisest choice for you can be found via what we offer. A long-term strategy, robust, well-diversified, and of course, biblically responsible. Hope that helps you there, brother. It's a good question. What else do we have here, Lige?
We have a question from Brett.
Okay.
He starts off by saying, thanks for the work the team does for the members. And he has a 3-part question here. You want me to go through all 3?
Sure, man. Yeah. You can go ahead and read all those.
So the first one, he says, do you think the United States will ever go to digital currency? The second question is, will cryptocurrency be used instead of the weak dollar? And the last question there is, how soon will the financial change take place? Just a guess. What do you think, Seth?
Thanks, Lige. Brett, that's a good trio of questions there. I'll do my best to answer those. Let's take each question in sequence. However, before I do that, let me just say this to all of you. My answer is speculation. And Brett, I'm not condemning you for the question. It's a good question. It is a speculative question in some sense. So my answer is also speculative. I don't have a crystal ball and I'm not a prophet. I can't tell the future. I'm not God. God knows the future. He's determined the future. I believe that wholeheartedly. But my answer is speculation and my opinions are my own. So just remember that, please. Please do not send Pat a nasty email if you hear me say something that you disagree with. Send it right to me, Seth@fism.tv. Don't involve Pat in it. Don't waste your time with that, okay? So anyway, Brett, to your questions. Questions 1 and 2. I'll answer those ones first. Do you think the U.S. will ever go on digital currency, and will cryptocurrencies be used instead of the weak dollar? Brett, we have to remember, the United States has, in the modern age, already been on a digital money system of sorts. It's not been institutionalized nationally, but we do have digital currency. It's called a credit card. It's called a debit card. We've used that. That is a digitized transaction of money. The first one, I believe, and this is according to Dan Celia's research, in the 1950s was the first credit card transaction that was ever used. I believe it was 1956. So we've been using digitized currency for 70 years. And that is notwithstanding all the different digital apps that you have, the PayPals, all that sort of stuff. With those things on the rise, it's only grown in the last decade especially. In that sense, we've already been on some form of digitized currency, and it's become rather normal for us, actually, for quite some time. Now, will it go to a full-on 100% digital currency such as a CBDC? We talked yesterday about the anti-CBDC act that is on its way. It's not passed fully yet. I believe it's in the Senate right now. Right off the bat, I'll say this. I hope not, and I don't think it's going to happen. I don't think that we'll go on a 100% digital currency such as a CBDC. I could be wrong about this, but I feel like this is not something that's going to happen, especially as we're seeing the steps that the current administration is taking to prevent that. I don't believe it'll happen on a mass level. Can it happen on smaller levels? Certainly. Can it happen on a mass level? Absolutely. But my opinion, I don't think it will. Maybe that's due to my specific eschatology based on what I believe the Bible talks about in Daniel and Revelation. If you want some of that, we go into a little more depth about that. You can join us on the Bible study for that. You can send me a message as well. Me bearing my whole eschatological worldview to you is not worth it for our time here on the show, but I'll say that's maybe part of my answer. I think another part of it is I still do have confidence in the U.S. dollar. I think it's established worldwide. It is being weakened, but it's still far and away the dominant currency of the world. Shanna addressed this a little bit on Thursday during her In the Know segment. You can listen to that for more. And again, with that anti-CBDC ruling that we got last week, that's now looking to pass the upper chamber, I think all those things mixed in together, I'm pretty confident that at least for now, hopefully we won't be seeing some kind of digital national currency replace the dollar. You've heard me say before, folks, you've heard Shanna say it as well, CBDCs or something like that could be very, very dangerous. And thankfully, I think the current administration understands that. I think enough people understand it as well. There's enough of a strong distrust in some kind kind of institutionalized digital currency. And so I think many people still trust the dollar, not just in our country, but in worldwide as well. And by the way, that's not necessarily a promotion of the strength of the dollar. I think it's more just a comparison of the dollar to these potential digital currencies that you're asking about, Brett. Question number 3, as for how soon this will take place, well, really my answer is based on what I just said in the last question. I don't think it's going to be soon, because I don't think it's going to happen. And I think in some sense we've already seen this type of digital currency take place in our country. Again, the 1950s, first time a credit card was used, those cash apps. So the answer for how soon, I don't think we have to worry about that. Brett, I hope that this can be helpful for you. Folks, I do know that there's always the question when we talk about digital currencies and their potential future in our country. There's always the question of, could that become the one world currency, crypto being the prime target? Listen, there's a lot of opinions around this question. And again, my personal eschatology would lead me to perhaps come up with an answer that might surprise you. Again, send me a message if you want to know more. But let's assume for just a moment that there will be a one world currency that leads to a one world government. If you, as many do, hold to a pre-tribulation view of the end times, where you believe that the church will be raptured before the tribulation, then guess what? If you're a Christian, you're not going to be around for it. You're going to be long gone. You're not going to have to worry about that one world government, because you'll be in glory. So I'm confident that if it does happen that way, believers will be enjoying perfect existence at that time. You won't have to worry about it. I hope that can be of comfort to you folks. Brett, I don't know if that was behind your question, but if it was, I hope you can rest easy about that there. Folks, up next, we've got Bob Barber joining me on the show. I'm excited for it. I hope you are as well, as we look at this biblical worldview of retirement. If you have to leave us, we hope you have a great rest of the day. And we got more financial issues coming up right after this for the rest of you. Stick with us.
If you're like me and used to think managing your investments was overwhelming or just for the experts, think again. I used to believe I needed a financial analyst to handle everything, but financial issues showed me I could manage my own investments while staying true to my faith. It's completely transformed how I handle my finances. What felt like a foreign language is now simple. I can buy and sell stocks with confidence, knowing my investments align with my faith. And the best part, this empowering, life-changing guidance is affordable, just $132 a year. FISM gave me the tools to restructure my portfolio, diversify, and track my investments. Their video library taught me how to steward what God has entrusted to me with wisdom. If you're ready to gain financial peace and manage your investments with purpose, I can't recommend Financial Issues enough. It's something anyone can do.
To learn more, go to financialissues.org.
One of the emphases of preborn has been ultrasound in two ways. An ultrasound machine if a pregnancy clinic doesn't have one, and then an ultrasound session, which we underwrite hundreds of thousands of those. We've seen over and over again the dramatic results that when a woman encounters her baby for the first time and hears that heartbeat, she realizes the magnitude of what's happening here, that there is somebody else, that's her baby. So this is why preborn pushes out ultrasound as much as we possibly can. Preborn has seen over 200,000
59,000 babies saved, over 59,000 people come to Christ, populating earth and eternity, life for this life and life forever. Save the baby's life, but save the mother's life so that she can lead that baby to Christ. If we're bringing people into this world and the mother doesn't receive Christ and the child is born and the child lives its life and doesn't receive Christ, this is not a good end. And so we have to have the gospel as part and parcel and really the heartbeat of what preborn is.
Welcome back, folks. Good to be here with you today on the show. I've got a very special treat for you here. I've got my friend Bob Barber. Bob's been on the show with me before, and I'm thrilled to have him back. Bob is a Christian financial expert. He's got more than 3 decades of experience helping individuals, businesses invest well for the glory of God. And so today we're going to be exploring the concept of retirement and how we as believers should approach this topic. Now, I'm really excited for this, Bob. I'm rather a younger fella, so I've still got some time before retirement. I know many of our listeners might be close to or in retirement age. And so let's just start with the big picture here, brother. What does the Bible actually say about retirement? I mean, is retirement even a biblical concept?
Well, it's got retirement in the Bible one time, yet it's got work in there over 550 times.
Wow.
So,
wow.
and the context is, it's over in Numbers in the old chapter, what did I say? The old chapter.
It's the Old Testament, right? Numbers?
Yeah, the Old Testament. Isn't that funny? The Old Testament, and it's in Numbers in the 8th chapter, and it talks about the chief priest, how they should retire at the age of 50. But it's not in the perspective that we would look at it today in the American perspective, because they should retire at the age of 50 to mentor and teach the younger priest. So that retirement was not just checking out, which seems to be what the American way is. You know, Seth, I'm 63, and a lot of people around my age are retiring, and I feel like the Lord's got a lot more years for me. And I've been battling with this concept myself, because financially I can retire easily, but it's just what God wants. And when you look at the Bible, I can't see the biblical reason for retiring unless you're going to serve God in another way and you're feeling a calling. And that calling could be to be a good grandparent, be there for your grandkids. It could be to serve in something like Habitat for Humanity, serve at your church more. So retirement can be biblical as far as if it's not about me, it's about helping others.
Bob, I'm so glad you said that, because it's something I've thought about as well. Now, I'm in a different life age than you are. In my 30s, young kids, I have I'm preparing. Obviously, the Lord can take me anytime He wants, but I'm preparing to have many more years of working and kind of building towards that. But I've even thought to myself, I don't want to stop working. I love work. And I do think part of that really is in our nature, that God created us to work. I mean, that's a pre-fall phenomenon. God put Adam in the garden to work it, take care of it, name the animals, take authority over it. And so I think work is a really good thing. And you'd mentioned over 500 times the Bible talks about work. One time it talks about that idea of retirement, as you mentioned. So with this emphasis of the Bible kind of focusing so heavily on work, how should we as Christians think about stepping away from a career?
I think we should think of it as stepping out of one career into another that would be a calling of what God has for your life. Yeah. And like I mentioned, there's many areas that we can serve God when we retire. If it's just to go pick up seashells on the seashore for the rest of our lives and play golf every day, and I watched this phenomenon being played out. And our second home on the coast, we're right on the golf course. And I watch these men playing golf every single day, and it's become a job to them. And I watch them when they, miss a shot and throw the club up in the air and say some pretty profane words. And I'm like, is this really enjoyment? It's become to them, they have that competitive nature in them, and they want to be doing something that is of significance. Yet playing golf every day is not of significance unless you're mentoring. Maybe you're taking young men with you, or if you're a woman taking young ladies and mentoring them on the golf course. I mean, I could see that where you could be telling them about Jesus and what he did for them and how to live that biblically filled life. But if it becomes all about me and myself, as we know, that's not a biblical worldview. That becomes a selfish thing that we want to do. It's just all about selfishness.
I'm so glad that you mentioned that, brother. And it seems to me like that might be one of the cultural sort of influencers into why this idea of get retired so you can do whatever you want has become so popular. Right. And so that's really what I kind of want to ask you next is when we're talking about the difference between the biblical view of retirement and later stages of life versus the secular view, why do you think it's become so normalized, even perhaps among Christians, that you retire so you can basically do nothing?
I think we need to look back at what happened and when did this retirement become such a thing here in America? And it really goes back to the Great Depression. And it was when FDR was trying to get people out of the workplace to make room for the younger crowd. And along came Social Security. So when you think about it, this concept of the American retirement as we look at it, it's not even been around a full 100 years. And we've just bought into it, hook, line, and sinker, that this is what you're supposed to do at 62, 65, maybe even 55. You're supposed to just check out and now go be about yourself and just days that don't really have a meaning to them. Now, if you have a meaning to life, like I said, during retirement, as an example, I would emphasize that you write down what are your goals in retirement. And if you're already retired, what are your goals? What are your spiritual goals? What does your day look like? What does it look like from 8 to 9 and then, 10 to 12? Plan that out to where you're doing something, like I say, that's significant, that's productive, because some of the most depressed people in our country are retirees. Yeah. That
really is fascinating, man. Even as you were talking, the thought came into my mind of, the reminders that we see in Scripture of the warnings against idleness. Even how, you look at the life of David, for example, and when he sinned against Bathsheba and committed adultery with her and then murdered her husband, his first mistake was not the adultery or murder. It was idleness. He wasn't doing anything. He was loafing around the castle. He was supposed to be off leading the army in war. He was not. He was at home, not really doing anything. That led to sin so easily. We see that. Speak to that for just a moment, Bob. Some of the dangers when we see retirement as a time to check out spiritually or vocationally, and even frankly from a health perspective too. What would be some of those dangers?
Well, just exactly what you mentioned. There are physical dangers if you are not doing things to stay physically fit and just laying around. As you know, that can be very dangerous in itself because muscle atrophy can check in, and you're not using your body, you're not using your mind. And when we're working, we're always using our body, we're using our mind. I mean, I know that what I do for a living, and you too, we're constantly thinking, constantly having to read, constantly learning. And that's what needs to be done during those retirement years. Come back with a little bit more of what you're looking in deeper here, because I want to make sure that we're moving towards that.
Yeah, right, Bob. So what I'm kind of thinking here is when you're talking about the potential dangers of retirement, how do we stay on guard against those? And so you had mentioned kind of that staying on guard against like idleness and stuff. Yeah. How do we stay on guard against them?
Well, I think the number one way we got to stay on guard is seeking God and what His will is for our lives. Yeah, we have to wake up each day in Scripture and in prayer, and we need to be walking in prayer. I'm a big prayer walker, and I don't know. Some people may not know what that means, but I actually pray throughout the day. I don't have to be in just a closet to pray, but I can be praying and seeking God's will throughout the day in everything that I do. When I'm driving, when I'm having my breakfast, when I'm working outside, you can constantly be in tune and I call it spiritual breathing. And I remember this back from my days when I became a Christian and went through a campus crusade Bible study about spiritual breathing and allowing the Holy Spirit to constantly speak to you and what he wants you to do with every single moment of the day that we're alive. And when we're retired, we're still alive. But be careful, because if you're not in tune with that, you can start becoming, instead of being outwardly focused, you start becoming inwardly focused. And that's the big emphasis I see that we try to teach here at Christian Financial Advisors and my podcast, Christian Financial Perspectives. We try to teach it's not about you, but it's about helping others. It's about giving. Give it away and it's yours forever.
Bob, such a cool perspective of how to look at retirement. Again, so many people see this as, this is my time. I earned this. Or even with like Social Security, I paid into this, so now it's mine. That perspective you just mentioned is so countercultural, but this is a time for people to be able to say, how can I give back? How can I make the most of these years? I mean, you have so much freedom there. So, Bob, I'd like to hold you over for just a moment here, brother, because I have a question coming back on the other side of the break that I'm really jonesing to get to. My guess is we might have some listeners who are wondering this as well, because we have rightly pointed out some of the dangers and negative things about retirement. So the question then becomes, should we seek to retire at all? And I'm going to hold our listeners on that hook there because we have a break coming up here. So we'll get back to that in just a moment there, Bob. I've got Bob Barber with me today, folks. Once again, so excited to get to have him on here, his expertise. We'll be right back with more financial issues after this break. Don't go anywhere.
It's up to us to stand up and say, enough is enough. All of this unbiblical stuff that's going on, whether it's abortion or transsexual or LGBTQ, widespread pornography, human trafficking. Bottom line, it's still up to us. If we stop investing in these corporations that are trying to destroy us, sooner or later they're going to wake up.
To learn more about biblically responsible mutual funds and ETFs, go to timothyplan.com.
Where's Mima? We found out Shepard's diagnosis when I was about 17 weeks pregnant. We learned that he was going to need a series of surgeries after he was born in order to give him what they considered a normal life. And we weren't sure how this worked.
Yeah, very emotional, very, very broken. And as my wife just said, not sure how this worked, and called Samaritan, and they said, you just go have that baby. You leave the rest to us.
And just to hear the confidence on the other end of the phone of, this is not something that you need to be concerned about at all. You focus on the health of your family, the health of your baby, and we will walk with you every step of the way.
I found out I was pregnant when I was 21 years old. For me, I was scared, I was shaking. They do an ultrasound, and that's when everything changed. When I saw my baby and when I heard her heartbeat, that was it. We've seen the hand of God ever since we stepped into the pregnancy center.
To find out how you can support the life-saving mission of Preborn, go to preborn.com/FISM.
This program do not necessarily represent the opinions of the station or any of the program sponsors. Additionally, all products or services offered by the program sponsors may not be known by the program.
Folks, it's a pleasure to have my friend Bob Barber on with me to share his perspective on retirement and retiring well. Bob, I just appreciate you so much, brother, and the wisdom that you give as well really is a blessing. Now, let me ask you this question here, brother. We have spoken thus far in, I think, an appropriate warning kind of tone when we're talking about not wasting the retirement years, not being idle, not just shooting for, I'm just going to go and play golf every day and collect seashells on the beach. The question then has to be asked, is retirement even a good thing at all? Should we not be ascribing to get to save for retirement? Should we just plan to work? How would you address that?
I would address that. That's a really good question, Seth. No, I think retirement is fine. I am not going to put down anyone that wants to retire, and I think retirement is a great time. I think about myself, and I spend a lot of time with my wife, and during those retirement years, a man can especially give back the years that were lost working back to his wife. And I know that a lot of our clients, they ought to just, I'm not going to mention the cruise line, but there's one major cruise line that they sure do support. And they go on a lot of European cruises and spend that time with their wives. And I think that is good that we give back those years that might have been lost to our spouse. Also, those years that might have been lost working so much that could have taken away from our children. Now we have that second chance. And that's why many of us that are grandparents, as myself, will say, if I'd have known it was going to be this great, I'd have been a grandfather first, because you have the time there to spend with your grandchildren. And right after we get done today, I'm going to go spend the afternoon with my grandson, being that it's the summer as we're making this, because he needs that, and I want to give that to him. And in my workplace where I am, they've given me the opportunity to spend those hours doing that. Does that answer your question?
Absolutely, Bob. I appreciate that so much. I felt that that tension that you just mentioned. As a man, I'm the sole breadwinner of my house as well, and so my wife makes the bigger sacrifice. She's home with the kids. And I'm so thankful for her doing that. Of course, I'm making a sacrifice as well, being away from them, but that's also a choice that I'm making, doing what God has called me to do. What a great thing for me to think about, that those retirement years can be, and once again, it goes back to what you said in the last segment, purposeful, God glorifying. It doesn't have to be evil. You can make the most of those retirement years. I love that you said that, brother. That's really good. So, Bob, you had shared with me during that last break that you have several sort of tips and tricks and kind of helpful things, five different things that we should be thinking about as we're nearing that retirement age and thinking through this. Can you share with our listeners what those are?
Well, if your listeners can get a quick pencil out and a piece of paper or their phone and start taking notes, or even just record it, I want you to write down exactly why do you want to retire. And write down all those different reasons. That may be 3 different, it may be 5 different reasons. I know that working with a lot of retirees, they just get tired. And, as we get into our 60s especially, the health starts to break down. And that may be one of the reasons they want to retire is health reasons. The second thing that you need to write down is what will be your purpose in retirement, with the emphasis on purpose. Or what is it now if you're already retired? So these questions can go those that are thinking about retirement and those that are already retired. That third question will be, what will your days look like? And come up with a schedule that you're going to look at. I mean, I know that you've had that schedule for maybe 40 years in the workplace, but we need a schedule. And I believe that it's about productivity, and God wants us to be productive. Like I said in the first segment, work appears in the Bible over 550 times, where retire appears 1 time. And God said, before the fall, work the garden. Number 4, write down, how will you serve others? Or if you're retired, how are you serving others right now? If you're not serving anyone, I think you need to. And I know as a man, and I got a lot of construction background, Habitat for Humanity is one of my favorite ways to serve. I've got clients that, one that's over goes to a small church in a little country town in the hill country here in Texas, and he does everything at the church. He mows, he fixes the electrical if it needs something fixing, he does painting. that's how he has spent his retirement years. And number 5, is retirement going to be all about your agenda, or is it about your agenda now if you're already retired? And think, push that away. Try not to make it all about you, because as you know, Christ came and taught us to serve others, not to be all about ourselves.
Love that, Bob. So let me just read these back to you so I know, and our audience members as well. So write down why I'm retiring, the purpose of it. Write down what the purpose will be. Write down what your days will look like, kind of like a schedule.
Right.
Write down how you'll serve others in retirement. And then ultimately, is retirement all about your agenda, or really is it about God's agenda?
That's right.
Yeah. Absolutely.
That's right. Perfectly said. You took good notes there. You must.
Thank
I don't know
you,
if you
sir.
were writing that, but you came back really
I'm
well.
hopeful. I try to listen. I try to listen to my elders, brother. So thank you so much. And by the way, we'll try to get to that if we have time here. But before we get to that, let me ask you this, Bob. As someone, I know I have felt this way before, and I'm sure many men especially feel this. We love our careers. We love what we do. We love providing. We love working. We love making money. How would you encourage someone who has retired or is nearing retirement and they're feeling a little bit sad, maybe discouraged, because they feel like they're losing their purpose when their career ends?
Well, I think they need to get with some other Christian brothers or sisters, and they need to pray about this. Go to God's Word, and if they are feeling depressed, because like I said, some of the most depressed people out there are retirees. They may need to get some godly counsel to help them. I mean, professional godly counsel. I would emphasize that. Retirees even have a suicide rate, and you think about that, and that's sad to hear, because it can be such a wonderful time. Seth, we serve the Christian marketplace, so those that we serve they have a wonderful retirement, and I see very few where it becomes all about themselves. But I know that one that works for us, that worked at a secular firm before he came here, he told me how miserable some of them were. And you got to be in prayer. You got to seek God's will. You need to be with other Christian brothers and sisters, and get involved in your church if you're not. Get involved in other ministries, mentor others. There's so many things you can do with this time now that you have it, instead of just being focused on one thing, which was just that workplace where you were.
Great words, brother. Now, we've spent a majority of our time, as I think was well worth it, speaking to folks nearing retirement or in retirement age. What about folks like me? What about folks with 20, 30, maybe 40 years left in the workforce in their 20s and 30s? How would you, as an older, seasoned brother, encourage a younger, perhaps less mature brother like myself to think well about retirement, but even now to start putting into practice some of those things that we'll need to do when we hit that retirement age?
Well, I will speak to the financial issue to that.
Yeah.
And, to be retired and not be stressed out about it, you've got to have enough that you've saved during all those years before retirement. And wealth is obtained by 99% of us slowly, systematically over time. It's not a get-rich-quick scheme that happens. Sudden wealth happens to very few people. Maybe you got an oil strike or you struck a lottery, but I've never bought a lottery ticket, so I'll never get one of those.
Right. Same here.
But and look, if you don't have a mentor in your life, an older person, man or woman, and as a woman, I would emphasize you look for an older woman that's a godly woman, or a man. When I was in my 20s and 30s, I had an older gentleman that really mentored me. And he stepped out into my life, got me involved in Bible study fellowship. I had another one that got me involved in the Gideons. And I remember those men mentoring me to move forward and how to build for those future years. So pick out those that have done it well and copy them, mentor. They'll mentor you and do what they've done. To be successful, we've got to follow successful people.
Bob, I appreciate your wisdom and insight so much, brother. As just kind of a final quick word here, Bob, give us an example of someone who retired well. And this can be a real person or maybe someone who is just kind of like an ideal here. But someone who's retired well, what are they doing?
Well, I know one of them that's working for Habitat for Humanity.
Yep.
I know another one that's very involved in Gideon's. I mentioned that other person, they're very involved in their church. Yep. Oh, yeah. One that's a good friend of mine. Their church has a big expansion project going right now, and he's got a lot of construction experience, and he is helping rebuild, the new sanctuary that they're building. So awesome. Those are some examples.
Awesome. Bob, I appreciate you so much, brother. I'm sad that our time's come to an end here, but I look forward to the next time we get to have you on. Thank you for sharing your wisdom and insight with us, brother. And I do hope that it encouraged all of you folks, whether you're in the retirement age, whether you're far from it, whether you're approaching it, to think well about this time to be used purposefully for the glory of God. It's a great, great time of life that can be stewarded well. And speaking of which, folks, that's why we're here to help you steward everything that you have well for the glory of God. Remember, it's all His. Let's be found good and faithful stewards with all of it. God bless you all, and we'll see you next time for more Financial Issues.
If we ever forget that we're one nation under God, then we will be a nation gone under.
Thank you for joining us. This has been an FISM production. Thank you for joining us. This has been an FISM production.